Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint. I'm Natalie Walton, and today's episode is a deeply personal one. If you've been following along for a while, you'll know that Imprint House has been a big part of my journey for years. But today I want to share some big news with you. I've sold my business. This has been a huge decision, one that wasn't made overnight. And today I want to take you behind the scenes, why I made this choice, how it all unfolded, and what's next for me. So let's rewind a little. Actually, let's go back to the beginning for a minute. I started Imprint House. Well, I actually started a blog in 2007, which was 18 years ago now, called Daily Imprint, because every day I was meeting interesting and inspiring creatives through my work as a writer and stylist at Real Living magazine. And I really wanted to learn more about the journeys of those people, those creatives who were basically doing what they loved for a living. And I wanted to learn what were the biggest lessons that they had made on their journey, because I was still very much at the beginning of my journey. And I was so kind of like new to this whole world. And I really wanted to know how they had the courage to pursue their passion and how they had managed to create this life that they really loved. And so that ran for a number of years. And I really enjoyed reading people's responses and interviewing people over the years. And then in May 2016, as I was about to give birth to my fourth child and my youngest child, I was also about to give birth to a new business too, Imprint House. Now, at the time, Instagram was still in its infancy, and many artists and makers were great at their craft, but not so great at marketing, promoting their products, and having an outlet to sell their wares. And so this was the initial idea for Imprint House as I started to develop it further, because I had been running for the blog for a number of years. I was starting to sort of struggle to find the time to maintain it. And, was I going to monetize it further? Was I going to become a full-time blogger? I didn't really want to do that. And so I was looking, how can this blog that I've created, how can it evolve? And so this is how Imprint House came out of this idea. As I started to develop the idea further, I wanted to focus on selling products of these people who loved what they did, created beautiful wares, but really maybe weren't so great at the marketing of it. And I really wanted to focus on the products that I use as part of my styling, ones that I often took to people's homes and, things that were missing. I would often have to bring beautiful linen tea towels and vases and hand-woven baskets and, other accessories such as that, I was like, why do people not have these? These are like the essentials that every home should have. So just before I gave birth to my son at about, I can't remember, I was either 37 or 38 weeks pregnant, but I was incredibly pregnant. And I had a photo shoot at my home to create a capsule launch collection. And so in July 2016, Imprint House was officially launched to the world. And over the years, it's grown to be a business where we've sold wares in a converted garage on our 27-acre property to becoming a must-visit homewares destination in Byron Bay. And as part of this journey, I've had pop-up shops in Sydney as part of my book launch, but this is home. I've had art exhibitions. I've had artisanal markets on my property, opening doors to our studio warehouse. We have been part of Newry Merchants in Byron Bay, and that happened literally, we were invited the day after we moved here. And then we have opened our own showroom in the Byron Bay area. And along that journey, I've had lots of features in leading publications and blogs. I've had leading interior designers such as Leanne Ford and Sarah Sherman Samuel specify my products in their projects. I've designed and developed my own range of lighting, which became quickly one of our best sellers, and sourced wares from all around the world. It really has been an incredible journey. However, in April 2021, I was considering selling Imprint House. And the reason was that at that time, I was working on my book Style, which was part of a 2-book deal with my publisher. I was also running my courses, the Styling Masterclass, and a few others, and managing Imprint House. And it all was starting to feel too much. Something had to give. I often say that when you put something on your plate, you need to take something off your plate. And if I was going to put 2 books to create onto my plate, then something really had to come off what I was already doing. And so at that point, we seriously thought about selling. And when I say we, I'm talking about myself and my husband, Daniel. The reason that I say we is because he has very much been a part of Imprint House on the back end. He is pretty much like the operations, chief operating officer, I guess we could call him, and, would be the one who was liaising with suppliers, doing all the finances of the business, the back end. I was more creative director and he was more, logistics and running the business from the back end. And so what we, like I said, we were really thinking at that point, and it was more me than him, to be really honest. I said, it's just too much. I just can't, do these 2 books plus keep being as involved in Imprint House as what I am. And so ultimately what we ended up doing was, rather than selling, we built a team. And so we focused on creating the systems that allow the business to function without me being involved in every little detail. And it worked. It really did work, and it felt really sustainable. And then at the start of 2023, we hired a marketing assistant who actually ended up being based in Melbourne. So she was remote and was really able to help look after a lot of the social media management and marketing and all of that side of things. And, and it really became a game changer for us because we created structured content calendars. We grew our email marketing list and, improved our conversion rates based on our email marketing, and our Pinterest traffic skyrocketed. It really worked and the business was thriving. However, life is full of twists and turns. And in March 2024, so about this time last year, everything shifted for me. And I came across a book that really changed my life. I bought a book while I was visiting Tasmania. It was, I was visiting I think it's called the Hobart Bookshop in Salamander Place. Recommend you go there if you're ever in Hobart. And I was visiting Tasmania to see family with my husband and children. And the book was called Quit by Annie Duke. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it because it really challenged so many of my beliefs. One story in particular about climbers on Mount Everest really struck with me. And what it was is it's this idea that when people go to climb Mount Everest, what happens is that people obviously die. It's a huge, huge expense for people to go and climb Mount Everest. There's people train for years to be able to do it. And what happens is that people have invested so much of their time, so much of their energy, their thoughts, their identity, their finances into making this happen. And people don't die on the climb. They die on the descent. And the reason is because they don't have a clear turnaround point. Before you set off, when you are thinking with your prefrontal cortex, when you're thinking with your rational mind, you have to decide at what point you're going to turn around because you've got a limited time, a number of hours to be able to get back safely. And if you don't turn around by that point, then you can die. And so what happens is that people, if they're not clear on that, or if they don't follow through with what they said they were going to do, then they think, oh, no, I'll keep going, I'll keep pushing ahead. And that's when they die because they end up losing oxygen and they can all fall on their descent. This book really made me question this idea that we always need to keep pushing forward, even when deep down we know something needs to change. And that was the moment I realized I was holding on to Imprint House simply because I had built it, not because it was necessarily the right path for me anymore. That realization, it really hit me hard. And I have always said that I want to focus on less but better. And I realized I wasn't doing it. And, at that same time, my life was actually getting more complex, not less. My husband's mother was incredibly unwell and sadly passed away a few months later. Our four children were growing up quickly. And for the first time, our children were getting all really involved in out of school activities. Soccer on the weekends, flute practice, ensemble practice. Up until, the past year or two ago, our children didn't really do any after school activities. And we very much were a very tight unit living in our home and on our property and just, on the weekends, just hanging out together. And, as children grow older, they want to hang out more with their friends. And the dynamic and the season of parenting that we're in has very much changed. Something had to give. Then a new opportunity arose. So in July 2024, we were approached by a US-based company, an aggregator that owns multiple homewares brands. And so basically, these companies typically look for businesses that are in a particular niche and that they can consolidate perhaps their operations or certain elements of the business and systematize them and make, obviously, grow the business, but make more profit as well. And so up until this point, my husband was keen to keep growing Imprint House. When I raised objections saying, I really think that we need to sell it or we need to close it, we need to move on from this chapter in our life, my husband was probably more of the reluctant one. And he was probably more emotionally invested in it than I was. But something shifted for him too after we were approached by this company. And just coincidentally, I had finished the book by this point and I'd given it to him. And he was really starting to see things in a different way because the book is actually based on science and it's really, really fascinating. If you're interested to learn more about the book, I will do a separate episode about this idea of when you should know when to quit and that quitting is not actually a failure in our society and culture. When we decide to no longer keep doing something, it is often seen as a negative thing. But actually, the people who succeed, in many areas of life, they know when to quit and what to quit at what season and which time in their life. Anyway, let me know. Send me a DM if you're interested to learn more about that. I'm so passionate about that idea. So anyway, after speaking with this company, this aggregator, he started seeing things differently too. And he didn't want to close the business, but he did see its value in a new way. He had sold a business before, and he understood that a thriving business is an asset. So Daniel created a presentation, met with these people via, I think it was Zoom, and was in discussions. Now, ultimately, we didn't feel that that deal was the right fit, but something important happened. Daniel was finally ready to sell too. And I should say as well that up until that point, I had probably just been saying, well, let's just close it. Let's just close it. Let's just move on. And he was very much of the belief, don't just close a business. You should sell a business. It's an asset. And so I agreed to go along and give it a try. And so finally, we were both on the same page and things started to move quickly. So why did I decide to sell? Well, selling Imprint House wasn't just about timing or finances. It really was about creating space for what I truly love and opening the door for a new chapter in my life. So here are some of the reasons I made this decision. The first was really that I wanted to simplify my life. As I mentioned, I just felt that I had too much on my plate. And I am very much a believer that when you are trying to do too many things, you don't end up doing any of them well. You're better off focusing on less, but better. I had also last year launched my group coaching program called Design and Grow, and I was really loving it. I mean, I still really love it. And so this was an extra thing that I had put onto my plate. And I really was coming to the realization that something really had to give. And it really started to feel more and more that it was time to let go of Imprint House. I also realized that I couldn't do both. Running Imprint House and Design and Grow simultaneously wasn't sustainable. And like I said, I had to take something off my plate. And also, interestingly, the business, as in Imprint House, was thriving. So we had just had two of our best quarters on record. Our international orders were growing. We were gaining traction with our own proprietary design lights. And we had an incredible team and a beautiful showroom that we had recently finished. If there was a time to sell, this was it. And so let me take you through the sales process and what's next. So the process itself was smooth. It was smoother than I could ever have imagined. We actually had a few different buyers interested. And next week, I'll be introducing you to the new owner. I'm so excited for you to meet her and to hear her vision for Imprint House. This transition has been a big one, but it all feels good and right. I'm really excited about the future and the space that I have created for myself and for my family. And so what I guess I wanted to share with you today on the podcast is that sometimes we can really fall into the trap of thinking that what we do, we will do forever. And that we really do, experience life in different seasons. I've seen this with my family, like when you have little children, you think you're going to be in that little children phase forever. But quickly, as sure as they grow up, you start to realize, oh, that was just a season. And as I've mentioned, we are now in a new season with our children. The same is true of our homes. We buy a home and we think it's going to be our forever home, and we invest so much time and love and care into it. But, also things change and we go, you know what? Actually, it's time for us to move, or it's time for us to downsize, or it's time for us to move closer to the beach or away from the city, or do, whatever feels most in alignment. And that is not to discredit the journey that we've been on or the experiences that we've had, but it is simply to recognize that we need to always check in with ourselves, what feels most in alignment. And, when I started Imprint House, and this is truly honest, and I think this happens with lots of business owners, when you start, you don't actually think about your exit plan. You don't actually think about what is the end of the road going to look like with this business or this journey. And so I never really conceived that. I just thought I was going to start this. I was so excited about all the possibilities, and I really didn't think about that. Now, when you have children, you don't think a lot about when they're going to move home and what that's going to feel and be like. But I think that in a similar way, the more that we kind of think about that and realize that, it's time to enjoy these summers, that we only have 18 summers potentially with our children, or we only have a limited number of holidays or other experiences with them. And very quickly, as they start to become more and more independent and want to hang out with their friends or get part-time jobs, those very early years where they are so attached to us, they really do change. And, it's like that famous saying that the days are long, but the years are short. And the older that I get, the more that is true in so many different areas of our life. I mean, I can't believe that it's almost 9 years since I started Imprint House. Certainly in terms of the ideation of it, the planning, I probably would have had the business name already set up by this point. We would have been creating the website, and that it really has been a beautiful chapter on my journey. But I'm also really excited for this next chapter. And so I am looking forward to sharing the new owners with you next week. I've also got an episode recorded with my husband, and he is going to break down the actual step-by-step process of how we sold our business. He's going to go into a lot of detail with that. And as I said, I'd love to share with you more about this idea of how to quit successfully. So thank you for being here and following along on this journey. Change can be scary, but it's also exciting. And I really can't wait to see what's next. So thank you for joining me today on Imprint. See you soon. And in the meantime, go create, go make some magic. And most of all, go leave your mark.
All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.